couple of little boxes to many 286. How fantastic. Just let everyone pour in for just a little bit. Please feel free to mute yourself as you come in, just so we can keep background noise to a minimum. Thank you so much. In the interest of everyone's time and screen awareness, I'm going to begin. So hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Jade Harvey-Beryl, and I'm part of the team at Canada's non-profit outdoor learning store. We're a charitable social enterprise that offers outdoor learning equipment and resources for educators and learners, while supporting Canadian outdoor learning non-profit organisations as well. And I'm joining you today from the traditional and unceded territories of the Sinixt, the Silks, the Ktunaxa, and the Secwepemc people, otherwise known as Revelstoke, BC. So we know that in the context of outdoor learning, it's fundamental to develop your understanding of local Indigenous knowledge and perspectives. That's why we're all here. That's why we're engaging experts like Faye. So we really want to take the time to nurture the relationships with the people who've called this place you call home for millennia before us. And so we encourage you to consider what you can do to deepen your understanding. And in this moment, we would invite you to share in the chat what Indigenous territories you are joining us from this evening. Please write that in the chat and let it pour out so we can have a waterfall of acknowledgement in this moment. And, you know, taking the silver lining from the last 2 years, we are really excited to be able to offer these workshops virtually. We were really in person before, and this enables those across Canada and beyond to join us, and especially those who are in more remote or underrepresented areas. And I feel, you know, when we have 300 plus people, that it's more fun to share our mutual desire to develop outdoor learning with more people. So that's pretty fantastic. For those of you who are just joining us, Zoom 101, please type any questions that you would like to ask in the chat. We're going to offer those up at the end as a Q&A. Please mute yourself. Leave your video on if you like. It's nice for people to see people's faces. If we do have bandwidth issues, I might ask you to turn off your video, but that's fine for the moment. We're going to do an introduction, and then Faye's going to give her presentation, and then we'll have a Q&A and then prizes at the end. So stick around for that good stuff. The recording and a link to get a certificate of attendance will go out either this evening or tomorrow. So for whatever reason, if you get called away or anything, it's going to go right into your inbox that you registered with it. So please welcome and wait for that. So just as a little introduction again to what we're doing, the Canadian Outdoor Learning Full Virtual Workshop Series, this is number 2 of 8, is brought to you by a group of over 25 partners from across the country, which offer excellent outdoor and environmental education resources, programs and support. I'm just going to run through their names because there's too many to give a description, and Duncan, my support, is going to pop the links in the chat. But again, these will all be connected in that follow-up email so you can find out. So we have Take Me Outside, who I'm also representing today. At the moment, they've got a 25% off all t-shirts using the promo code outside. But we have the Pacific Foundation for the Understanding of Nature, aqam, Green Teacher, Green Learning, Natural Curious. Oh, do you know what? This is supposed to happen first. Here we go. Excuse me, this helps you to visualize what's going on. Just give me a moment here. Sorry, bear with me.
Yeah, follow this, the Take Me Outside version or anything. We can go now that I know I'll get this email to me. I can watch it.
Please feel free just to give yourself a little mute if you're joining us. That would be fantastic. Thank you very much. And please excuse me while I just get everything going here. Okay, so sorry, here are our partners. Take Me Outside, the Pacific Foundation for Understanding Nature Society, aqam, Green Teacher, Green Learning, Natural Curiosity, Water Rangers, Seabeam, IPSA, Wild Sight, GEOC, Sask Outdoors, ACE, Stoked on Science, Get Outside and Play, OC, Classroom to Communities, KB, Learning for a Sustainable Future, ImagineEd, Eco Schools Canada, Leave No Trace Canada, Nature for All, Megan Zenny, the New Brunswick Environmental Network, CPAWS, and the Outdoor Council of Canada. And so, very pleased to share that all of those partners, and they have amazing resources you can go and find after. But really what we're here today is to talk about Indigenous resources and perspectives for outdoor learning. Joining us today is our presenter and expert is Faye O'Neil, who's born on the homelands of the Ktunaxa. She's a member of the aqam community and resides in Cranbrook, BC. She's the Aboriginal Education Coordinator in School District 5 in the Southeast Kootenay and has been working for over 20 years promoting and braiding Indigenous worldviews and perspectives into the classrooms. We're not volunteering and sitting on committees and boards for aqam and the Ktunaxa Nation. You can find her out exploring, following the footprints of her ancestors. She's a previous winner of our Environmental Education Award of Excellence from the Columbia Basin Environmental Education Network, and we are incredibly grateful to have you here, Faye. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and you can unmute and say hello, welcome.
So kia sukiyoki everyone. My name is Faye and I'm going to attempt to start to share my screen. We did try it once before, so let's see.
And I forgot to share mine and just started rambling, so it's
that's okay.
Always fun.
Now how do I get rid of all of these little boxes? Okay. Waiting room people. So kia sukiyoki everyone. So my name's Faye O'Neil. I'm Ktunaxa and a member of the aqam First Nations here, just outside of Cranbrook. I am a CBEEN Indigenous Advisor along with Jade, and sit on the board. I share the position in the Cranbrook School District with my cousins, Nusuk and Joe Pierre, as an Aboriginal Education Coordinator. So I just like to say hi, and I will start the presentation. So, oops, nope, wrong button. Bear with me, nope, it's not gonna work. Okay, so yeah, so kia sukiyoki. My name's Faye. As I said,
Shut down everybody.
Sorry, I was just hearing voices. It wasn't in my head, I don't think. So I come from the homelands of my people, Amakas Ktunaxa, and we are located in the southeast corner of BC and have been here from time immemorial. And I'd like to acknowledge all the other First Nations, Inuit and Métis people across Turtle Island. So I just wanted to introduce myself. So up on the screen, you're going to see a bunch of pictures, and I come from, my ancestry is Indigenous and European. So the photos up here are of my ancestors on my mother's side, who is Ktunaxa. And I just want to make the screen so I can see. So yeah, so you'll see me in the middle with my 3 children. They're all growing now, so that picture is quite old. And then you're going to see some of the strong women that have been, that survived so that I could be here today. Down in the corner here, and I don't know if you can see my cursor, but this little woman here was my great-great-grandmother, Catherine Sam. So she survived to be up to 105 years old. And there's actually people thinking, there's actually records saying that she might have been older than that. We have my great grandmother Adele Luke here and we believe this photo. Can you guys hear me?
We sure can. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Somebody's just asked me to unmute, and I was thinking, okay, maybe I'm muted, but I'm not. So yes, we have my grandmother Angelique with my mom as a little girl. This photo of the lady with the horse is my grandmother, Sophie Sam. My mom here on the other side here. And then we have some of the my indigenous ancestors, grandfathers, Chief Isidore. So if you guys are familiar with the Ktunaxa people, Chief Isidore was the one that was actually negotiating with Colonel Baker but not Colonel Baker, but was Sam Steele in regards to the land of that Colonel Baker had taken, and some other issues that had arisen with the Ktunaxa and the local settlers in the area. Down in the corner, left-hand corner of me, is my grandfather, Toby Nicholas, who went and fought in World War II and died in Sicily with Operation Husky. And on the other side is my other grandfather, Sam Gonzaga. And then in the top corner there, you'll see 4 people standing, and one of them is my great-grandfather, Dominic Nicholas, and his wife, Sophie. So that's just a bit about me and my Ktunaxa ancestry. Okay, now it won't move. Okay, sorry guys. Okay, there you go. So this is a map of the Ktunaxa territory here, our traditional homelands. So our homeland ranges from the east to the continental divide of the Rocky Mountains, south to Montana, Idaho, and Washington, west into the West Kootenays, and north to the Yellowhead Pass. Our homeland is connected to our creation story, and I'm not going to go into the creation story right now, but I will tell you that you can find it on our, if you Google just the Ktunaxa creation story. And what the creation story does is talks about how people and the land became like those landforms. So we had this creature named Yawunik, who was causing chaos in our community, and the animal people needed to do something about him. So they chased him around, and the Kootenay River and the Columbia River were joined at one time, and they would chase him around those rivers to try to catch him so they could kill him, because he was killing our people, anybody that entered the waters. So he was killed, and his ribs became part of the hoodoos that you see in the area, and his bladder, his kidneys, the orange row, and the blood became those 4 races of people. So, and then we had a giant, and his name is Mutsun, and he actually is forming the Rocky Mountains. His head is the Yellowstone Park in Montana. His feet are the Yellowstone Pass up north, and his body is the Rocky Mountains. So my perspective, so when I was asked about perspective and Indigenous content, I had to do a lot of self-reflection, because I think we just go with the flow, and we really don't at least I don't really look at it and reflect. So when I was looking at it, I was thinking, well, what is my journey, and what do I need to give, and what is my purpose? So and to me, it's about giving back, and it's my relationship to the land, self, and natural world. And that was something that I found in a book called Bridging Cultures, and I'll show you the book later on. It's a book that's not being published right now, so it's a little hard to find, but if you can find it and read it, it's actually a really good book in regards to Indigenous and scientific ways of knowing nature. So if you do have a chance to find it, purchase it. It's really, really good. So, and then it was like, well, what else do I need to know about myself and my perspectives and my self-actualization to become my whole? And I found this by Dr. Gregory Kahate, and it was about coming to know and to become wiser and live properly and within myself and in nature. So it's all about the interconnection and the relationship to the outside, to the land, and to my people, and to the language. Some of the things that I use to help balance myself in life is the medicine circle, which may be familiar with majority of people, especially your people in the Indigenous community. Not all of us used it, but we've adopted it. So it's about becoming whole, complete, and balanced in mental, spiritual, emotional, and physical ways. And it's something that I use a lot. So when I'm struggling, I actually do take a look at this and try to figure out what areas I need to work on to become more balanced. The seven sacred teachings, or the seven grandfather teachings, is another. It is some ideas that I use. We use it in the schools a lot. We use the medicine circle in the schools a lot too. And it's about just the wisdom, the truth, the humility, love, bravery, respect, and honesty. So those are some of the things that help keep me balanced in life. I saw Sylvie on here. So yes, Sylvie, I am using the principles of learning. So here is the First Peoples Principles of Learning. It was created by FNESC. FNESC stands for the First Nations Education Steering Committee. And it was Principles of Learning to support the course English First Peoples, which explored First Peoples literature. And the First Peoples Principles of Learning were there to support and to guide teachers to consider beyond what we teach through the lens of how we teach it. And so I've actually just, we're gonna go through those principles, and then you're gonna actually see how you can connect those principles into your everyday life, which is something that we talk to teachers about. Instead of, please teach the students, but please use them yourself. So I've broken them down. So we're going to just go through the principles. So learning ultimately supports the well-being of the self and family, the community, the land, the spirits, and the ancestors. So just go on. You'll see how these principles can be used in everyday life and how you can incorporate them into your outdoor education. Learning is holistic, reflective, experiential, and relational, focused on the connectedness and reciprocal relationships and a sense of place. Learning involves recognizing the consequences of one's actions. And, when you're looking at this, I was jotting down notes while I was going through this. And, what does that really mean? Well, in schools, it's about, you have to have, there's consequences to one's actions. And I think when you're out in the land too, the same applies. You're learning by your actions. You're learning by what you're doing. And I think one of the things that I always see out on the land is, people leaving their garbage behind and people destroying things. And one of the things that we're seeing and we're trying to get students to stop doing is when we're out walking and exploring in nature is, you don't kick the rocks and you don't break the tree branches, and because they're all living entities. And that's one of the things that we're trying to teach the students. Learning involves generational roles and responsibilities. Sorry. So when I look at this, I know that in our Ktunaxa ways, everybody had a responsibility, everybody had a role. And what I've learned what I just learned lately was that we didn't really have gender specific roles. But we all contributed. There were a few responsibilities that a man or a woman may have had, but mostly we were all taught to survive. So we had to learn everything. And we're starting to bring back some of those ways. And so we do have people that are assigned to take care of certain things. We have somebody that's called the Bitterroot Chief, and that person's responsible for opening up the bitterroot harvest season. So there are roles for different people. So that's something that we're starting to see more of. Learning recognizes the role of Indigenous knowledge. And one of the things that I know, and that I know my co-partner Joe talks about, is what is good for Indigenous people is good for all, but that doesn't always work the other way around, the opposite. So knowing the ways of knowing the land, the historical and traditional knowledge, that historical knowledge before contact. So those, and that traditional way of living in nature. Oops, must be getting dark outside. Learning is embedded in memory, history, and story. And that's one of the things that, when you're connecting with Indigenous people, it's those stories that are coming up, the history and that untold truth. Finding an Indigenous person to talk to. One of the things that that I read in Bridging Cultures book was finding an Indigenous word for Mother Earth or nature, because some of our languages do not have those words. So make the effort and go to your local Indigenous community and find out what the word for Mother Earth is or nature, because we're all different. So actually have that question to our elders advisory group right now of what word did we use for Mother Earth or nature. Learning involves patience and time. So in classrooms, it's about unfortunately we have a time to do tests and all that, but how can you do that outside in nature, and how can you do it outdoors? And it's about patience and time. I mean, when I'm out in nature, I'm always learning. I always have my plant books with me, and I'm always trying to identify plants. So it is the patience and time in the outdoor learning. One thing I did mark down here is it took Canada's 152 years old. So it's going to take to bring Indigenous content back into the forefront. It's going to take many more years of correcting it. Learning requires exploration of one's self-identity. And in a classroom, you can ask that, but how do you do that on outdoor learning? I think it's how you walk, how you move on the land, and and asking yourself, who am I and what do I want from outdoor education? Does it make me happy? I think it was yesterday. I was with a teacher, and they go outside every Friday. But what they're starting to notice is some kids are not coming to school on Fridays. So I just kind of said, I guess you're gonna have to change your days up. But she said, once the students are outside, they love it. It's just that just trying to get them outside. Learning involves recognizing that some knowledge is sacred and only shared with permission and in certain situations. I don't know if I have to say too much about that one. A comment was made just a while ago. I think it was probably last spring, about when you ask an Indigenous person a question and you get no feedback, is that the answer? I got to say, yeah, sometimes it is. That is the answer. If you're not getting a reply, then guess what? You've got your answer. It's something something that they're not going to tell you about. My previous school district, I was fortunate enough to connect with the Indigenous community out there, and I got to learn some of their longhouse ways. And I remember one day asking a question about their winter season and I was told I was not to ask, and I respected that. One of the things you have to remember too is that songs and stories belong to some families and communities, and they own them, and we don't have the right to use them. So if you're wondering about songs and stories and protocol, just please communicate with with those communities that are in your local area. So to move on to the CBEEN Outdoor Learning Store resources. So these are some of them that are that we have on the CBEEN store. There are a few new ones. So I did this slide up before the new ones. So one of the books is the Ktunaxa plant book, All Living Things, and I am a beginner learner for Ktunaxa, so I am not even going to attempt it. I do know the last two words, but I cannot pronounce the first one. So I picked a plant that's pretty easy to say. I know what it is. It's nahuk. It's the Oregon grape. And one of the ways I use this book is, well, I always have one in my backpack, and I always and when I'm out with the students, the teachers use this book for the students, and we pick about 3 or 4 plants when we're outdoors, and the students look it up, and they go on to First Voices, which I'll show you in a minute, and they practice how to say it. So nahuk, and then they will look at the description and the habitat and the use of it. So I will just move to the next slide. So we get the students, sometimes if we have Wi-Fi out in the field, then the students can use their Wi-Fi to go into First Voices, or they just wait until they get back into the classroom. So First Voices is a Indigenous language website, firstvoices.com. It also has First Voices Kids if you have students that want to learn. So what you do is you go into First Voices, you click on the nation that you would like to learn the language from, and then you can explore words. Now, our Ktunaxa language is interesting. Sometimes you're just trying to find a word, maybe for like pine wood, which has come up lately, and trying to tell the schools or the staff that we just don't have a word pine wood. We have a word for different pine trees, and we have a word for wood. How it's put into a word that's readable in Ktunaxa could be a phrase, and that's something that that we really use our local language authority for, is to come up with these words. So I'm just going to click on this, and you will be able, hopefully you'll be able to hear how you say nahuk in Ktunaxa. Oops, now it disappeared. Where did it go? So I do know that First Voices has kind of revamped their website. I think they've caught on to us in some of the things that we were doing about words, QRing words. I'm not sure, but can't do it anymore. But you can go on and you can type in the word Oregon grape, and nahuk will come up. Sometimes the word comes up maybe 2 times, depending on how many of our language speakers were recorded. So it could be a man's voice, it could be a woman's voice, or it could be a youth's voice. So that's just something that you'll notice. And our language can be like nahuk can be said a bit different, but it's not wrong. I could get my finger slapped for that one, but I'm trying. So here's another one of the books that's in there, the Natural Curiosity second edition. I had a chance to review it and look at it. So I just picked one of the chapters and now I can't see everything. Oops. The flow of knowledge, everything is, but there's more to it than that. So just hold on. You guys may be able to see it, but I can't. So, oh yeah, the flow of knowledge, everything is related. So this is chapter, it's page 102, Indigenous Lens on Branches. And I just picked this place because it was connected to outdoor learning. It was connected to the Indigenous ways of knowing. And so place connected to the land, relationship, all are intertwined, responsibility, take care of the land, animals, oneself, and community, and sharing songs, stories, language, and knowledge. So it was just one of the chapters that chapters I was looking at and thought that that was probably more connected to what we were doing. Even though the book is really, really good. It's, inquiry based, so in environmental. The Pacific Northwest plant cards. Even though I'm not on the coast anymore, I still use these cards because a lot of these plants we have in our local area. I did pick Oregon grape again. If you get a chance, Strong Nations is selling these now. They're the publisher now. And what I really, really like about these cards is you'll see down on the bottom, it has the little circles and if the plants are edible, were they used for everyday use? So it has a breakdown of how they were used. It also has the description of when it was harvested, different ways of the plant being used, like the bark. Right now we have somebody in our community that's experimenting with different plants with the bark and the leaves and everything to make different colors. So the cards are really, really good. So if you please get a chance, please use them. I've actually taken the cards that are in our All Living Things books and I put them together so that when I'm out in the field, I can take a look at it. Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer. I've actually have this on my Audible and I'm on my second round of listening to it when I'm out walking. I love this book. I could listen to it over and over and over again. I think everybody should read it. It actually really, really just opens your eyes to a new way of seeing the world in Robin's eyes. It's just incredible. So she also has another book called Gathering Moss. And after I read that book, I had a different perspective on moss. And I actually get quite upset now when I see the weed man coming to spray the grass. Here are our strong reader books that CBEEN has out. I just actually took, sorry, these things keep popping up. So these books are excellent. Strong Nations is putting out some incredible, incredible resources for teachers, for people. I can't say they're all from different nations. Each one of these books represents a different nation. The collection keeps growing year to year. I remember when I think there was just 2 books, like 2 different nations putting out books. I think they come in a series of 7 or 8. 2, 4, 6, they come in a series of 8. So really, really good resources to use. The 3 Sisters talks about corn, squash, and beans, about how the Indigenous people back east use those 3 plants to grow, and just incredible way of learning how to keep the soil rich too. Gifts of the Salmon, Taking Care of Mother Earth, The Story of the Tamarack Tree, Traditional Berry Picking, and Bald Eagle, Bald Eagle. Now these books range in different different learning categories. So, so if you are looking and you're not sure what the age level is, and I believe that they're pretty spread out with the age levels in each group session, in each group of books. God's Groundswell. I haven't had an opportunity to look at this one, but I'm really excited to browse it. Indigenous knowledge and a call to action for climate change. And I believe CBC just put out I'm not sure if it was a podcast or a show, I think it was on the 19th, about Indigenous knowledge and climate change. So yeah, so if you have a chance to take a look at that one came out a few days ago. So great book for outdoor educators. Here's a couple new books that have gone on to CBEEN Outdoor Learning. The one here, Sila and the Land, is Indigenous written. It's about a young Inuit girl who goes on a journey in the 4 directions, and she meets different animals, plants, and elements that teach her the importance of the land and her responsibilities to protect it for future generations. The second book here, The Heart of the River, is by a non-Indigenous author, and it's around the Columbia River and what and the impact of the industry water projects has on the river. I'm going to butcher this, so my apologies. The Ktunaxa have a contribution to that. This is a reprint of the book. I believe it was first printed in 2004. So Strong Nations. I can't say, all I can say is this is an incredible website to order books from. Terry Mack is the owner of it. She's a former EA education assistant, resource teacher on the island. Whatever you're looking for, there's one time I couldn't find a book, so I emailed her and just said, okay, I know the book had this picture on the cover and it had these things inside. And she got back to me really fast and said, yeah, I know which book it is. How many do you want? So if you ever have any questions, if you're looking for a book and she doesn't have it, the people that work with her are incredible and they are very fast at getting back to you. Some other resources. So I just went through and just found some other books. A majority of these books are on Strong Nation website. So Ancient Pathways and Ancestral Knowledge, Land-Based Education. Nancy Turner is non-Indigenous, but she has worked with Indigenous communities and people and is very knowledgeable. I have this book, Plant, People, and Places, another one by Nancy Turner. Looking forward to being able to open it up and put some time into reading it. Another book I found was Outdoor Schools. Some more books, We Learn from the Sun, A Teacher's Lesson Plans and Resources. I believe I just Googled that one, but I can't remember. And then this one I can't really read because stuff is in the way. And then from Food We Get from the Land and Sea. This is actually, I just wanted to put all of this on this one because this one looks like a really great book called Stewardship. Another book that you can purchase is part of the Indigenous Life of Canada series. Stewardship focuses on the land and culture changes and challenges to protect the protection of the importance of traditional resources. So another book that's really that I'll be looking at. This is the book that I've been talking about, Bridging Culture by Glenn Aikenhead and Herman Michelle. Herman is of Indigenous ancestry, Glenn isn't. But I tell you, the book is incredible. Unfortunately, I found it very dry at the beginning because it was actually a lot of scientific words, just about Euroscience and about how we connect the European science ways and that. So, but when I got to the Indigenous ways of knowing, then I was totally engulfed. So what I did here is I just actually put up on the screen the traditional Native knowledge and the Western sciences and those common grounds. You can find this on Google. There's actually a couple different ones. And I believe somebody did their thesis on it. And then this one, the ways of knowing, just that Euro-American science, and then the indigenous learning. So both of these you can find on Google. Just type them in. This is a new book that actually came out right down here. Glenn Aikenhead is actually a contributor to this book. It is actually, it's actually in a way that teachers would be using it for lessons. So if you have a chance to purchase it, I would say yes. So it would be a good resource. So I just put an example up here in regards to all of this and how do we connect everything together. And so I found this website, Learning the Land, and it just has it's just a visual of how we can connect, so that inherent in treaty rights, engaging, inquiry-based culture and language, and it's about learning the land. And then of course, when you go down here, it says, where are you from? How do you make those connections? And of course, Mother Earth. So something to look at, you know, and how are you connecting everything together? Where to go to seek information. So go check out your local Indigenous communities. Talk to the elders and knowledge holders. If you're working in a school district, check with the Indigenous Education Department in your school district. And if you're looking for something authentic and you're wanting that hands-on experience, check out and support those Indigenous tourism and businesses. Joe and I get asked this a lot, and it's something that we did, that we talk about when we go into the schools and meet with the administration and all that. And it's just about what is the correct terminology and what do you use? So is it okay to use the word Indian or Native? Can I use tribe or band? What about Aboriginal and Indigenous? What's the difference between an elder and a knowledge holder? And religion and spirituality. So those just a few things that always come up. Actually, I can tell you that the religion issue came up just recently, and we were doing a ceremony, and of course, you know, people thinking it was a religion when it wasn't. So a good resource for this is First Nations 101. Tons of stuff you need to know about First Nations people. Reconciliation. Of course, I got way back. So what is reconciliation? And how do you as a person, how do you think, or what do you think reconciliation is? Well, to me, it's I have a hard time with the word. I believe that we have to do truth before we can do reconciliation. We have to heal before we can have reconciliation. And I feel that right now it's a way of checking a box off. And I try to move past that and have a bigger conversation. The word does generate a conversation. So that is a positive thing, but how do we use it? So as you know, September 30th is coming up, Orange Shirt Day as we know it, and Every Child Matters. in regards to what has happened since, I think it was June, of the unmarked graves at the residential schools. So how can you help with truth and reconciliation? Well, I do know that CBEEN has done a great job in promoting, and they have something for, I don't know, 8 days, 9 days, 10 days. Each day they are promoting. So you can also go to the Truth and Reconciliation website, which is the Native Center of Truth and Reconciliation, and check out what the Truth and Reconciliation Week. And you can visit the archives. You can talk to an elder. That's a good way. Some elders are, well, unfortunately with COVID, our elders are kind of staying close to home, but yeah, Facebook, you can find some of them on Facebook. You can ask people on Facebook what they're doing for truth and reconciliation. So I always put a disclaimer in my when I'm doing presentations. It's because I'm a learner, and my learning and will change. Well, what I talk about will change as I learn, and I don't try to claim that it's the truth. What I do is just to try to give awareness to what I'm doing. So this is a picture of my aunt. I think he's my 6th-time great-grandfather, Isidore, Chief Isidore. So he's standing right there. And that picture that you saw earlier is very familiar, very similar to the one that you saw before. But yeah, that's so I just wanted to put a disclaimer that I don't know everything, and that I'm learning as I go too. Some websites, and these are some of the websites that I put down here, but as you saw, Jade had many, many more for outdoor education. But I did put some Indigenous websites down here too. First Nations Education Steering Committee, that is a BC based group. BCTF is our BC Teachers Federation. Orange Shirt Society, and then of course there is the Orange Shirt Day too, which is Every Child Matters. Our TRC, which is that one that you just saw, and I also put there the First Nations Child and Family Caring Society, and there's many, many, many more websites that you can go to. I didn't put any of the government websites down. I think there's other places you can go to look for them. The resources that I used, well, I didn't do the typical resources when you're writing your papers. I just wrote these down. Strong Nations website, Google searches, CBEEN website. Most of those photos are my personal photos, and some of those photos I got from the Glenville Museum archives. So I know I'm early, but I want to say Sukani, which means good. All is good in my language. And I want to thank everyone for joining me. I hope that I was able to enlighten people. And I want to say thank you. So when we finish in our language, we say tahas, which means I'm done, and it's somebody else's turn. So I'll stop sharing my screen.
Thank you so much. Who's Takani? Can you repeat? Husiksukani. Thank you so much. And it means thank you, like from your soul, right from your heart, not just words. So that's really beautiful. There's a big waterfall of thank yous and people saying that there's amazing resources there, things. Don't leave just yet. If anyone does have any additional questions, there's been lots of resource sharing and things, which is super. Please pop them in the chat now. If anyone's got any other questions that they would like to ask Faye before we sort of roll into our close and prizes and things. I like that people are getting involved in Strong Nations. One of the things that when I've talked to different people, Indigenous knowledge keepers who share with stories, is that I've bought a bunch of puppets from Strong Nations that are created by Indigenous artists, and then I use the Strong Stories books and have the children act out the finger puppets and be the salmon or be the bear. And I really think that really engages, and that storytelling. Yeah, like I was nervous. I asked this question before, like, I'm not Indigenous, can I tell your stories? And as long as, you're talking about who that story came from, and acknowledging the provenance of that story and that message, then that's really important. I'm wondering if I missed that while I was just chatting. People are just saying, thank you so much. I think one of the things that, where were the puppets from? Strong Nations. So we're quite interested in outdoor learning, obviously, sort of par for the course in our name. And do you have any ways, Faye, of sharing, like, ways that you would particularly take Indigenous learning outside that people could utilize?
Yeah, thanks. So some of the ways that the Indigenous, that Joe and I are asked, or some of our community members are asked to take outdoor learning to the outside, is place names is one of them. So, the Ktunaxa place names for certain areas. I know a lot of teachers are interested in that. And I do know that, we do have that map that I showed you guys. But I also know that our nation, we have a Ktunaxa Nation Council. So it's kind of like the affiliation of the different bands that have got together. So they kind of represent, there's a building that that negotiates and represents those 4 communities that are in Canada. So we're asked about place names. We're asked about doing ethnobotany walks, which I love to do with the kids. And about this, one thing that's happening right now in our area is the salmon run. So, as you guys are aware, some of the salmon are starting to make their way back up the Columbia. But most of the salmon that are running in this area and where I am is the kokanee salmon. But the salmon run is really important. So Indigenous people are being asked to come and speak about the salmon, talk about the salmon, how we used it. A lot of couple other things that we're, the stories, like our creation story is really important. And my part, and Joe Pierre is incredible telling the creation story. He was at the C2C when it was here in Cranbrook, down at the St. Eugene Resort. He talks, and he goes to different areas to talk about the creation story and why it's so important. But I'm just trying to think of some other things that we do. Water, going into classrooms and talking about water. And of course, right now it's the Columbia River Treaty negotiations going on. Where our community, where the Ktunaxa and the other First Nations weren't invited to the table at first. So there was a lot of negotiations going on with that. So, classrooms are interested in the water. And as you guys are aware, or may be aware, that a lot of Indigenous communities all across Canada do not have clean drinking water. And I do know that my community is in the same boat where they do not have clean drinking water. And I believe out of the 4 communities here in our area, the Ktunaxa communities, I think there's only one that could maybe pass the drinking water quality. So, yeah. So I hope I answered your question, Jade.
Absolutely. I think just getting out there into that environment and then learning. I do like a sensory warm up with the kids where we try and name things. And actually, you shared with me in my research now that in Ktunaxa, Revelstoke, where we live, is the Miskakas, the land of the chickadee. And I do a whole fall winter outdoor lesson with kids on chickadees and making chickadee sundaes, which is just like snow cones either in a cup or just on the ground, and finding bits of twig or squish berry or anything to sort of decorate it, and talking about the way that their brains increase in size in the winter dramatically to remember where they hide all their food sources. So like, you know, tying in, like you've always said, braiding in that knowledge into any lesson is possible. And yeah, not being afraid to open your mouth and try and speak the language, even if it's just one word. I think it can be a bit intimidating, but that's pretty important. I think at this point we've got to 5 o'clock exactly, and I think unless anyone else wants to, as I'm doing my slow close down ramble, to add any more questions, or Lindsay says always try to speak the language because the land is listening. That's a really beautiful sentiment. I recently spent some time with some Blackfoot Cree people, and we did a lot of saying thank you to trees and touching the mother tree of cedar in the forest where we were. And I found that even just that moment of gratitude changed the whole interaction with that outdoor space, and that's with kids or adults. Then it's pretty special moment, and you start to feel that spirit or the soul of that living thing connect with yours. It's pretty magical. Okay, so thank you, Faye. Just, I mean, I think the reason that there's not a lot of questions in the chat is because your presentation was so encompassing. You touched on so many different points and shared so much incredible knowledge. All of the resources like Sealer in the Land and the Heart of the River and Groundswell, you can, and the ethnobotany, Ktunaxa ethnobotany cards and those Pacific Northwest cards you can find at outdoorlearningstore.ca. And again, nonprofit all goes back into providing free workshops like this and connecting with all of those environmental nonprofit partners. You can join us. I know it's a Sunday morning, it's an odd time, but it's also World Rivers Day or BC Rivers Day if you live over here. And on Sunday morning at 8 a.m. Pacific, join with a tea or coffee in hand. You can, we're doing a reading of The Heart of a River with Lorraine Wiley, who is the Executive Director of the Salish School of Spokane. And she's going to read the book. And it's a book for anyone who loves rivers. It's only going to be about 30 minutes. So you can, it's full family friendly to celebrate Rivers Day. You could register for our next workshop. We're having a little break. It's October the 14th with Christina Pickles from Get Outside and Play. Lots of information there about early learning particularly as well. Okay, a couple of prizes to finish because we appreciate your participation. This one's a toughie. In order to, and it's the first two people, typing fingers at the ready. First two people to type the correct answer will win a Take Me Outside cap. There's a few different options. If you win, I'll ask for your email and then we can size you and do other things. They're made from ethical materials, made in Canada by a small family and owned operation. Here we go. Who can remember or share the Ktunaxa word for Oregon grape that Faye shared with us at the beginning? Oh, it's very good, very good. Okay, now the first correct, Steph Klein. You were first in, congratulations. And the next correct spelling was Rose. Well done. Please send me a direct message with your email, Nahuk, Oregon grape. That was a toughie. I was quite mean there. And in order to win the final prize, which is a $50 gift card, so that you can access some of these Indigenous resources on the Outdoor Learning Store for free, I'm just going to ask you to share 3 words that Indigenous perspectives mean to you. First person to give me 3 words. Oh, beautiful. Katie Lacey, connection, love, place. Thank you, everyone. Nurture, loving, restoration, truth, kindness, love, peace, connection, love, humble, whole, respect, dignity, healing, meaningful. Okay, beautiful. Thank you for sharing all of those anyway, but well done to Steph, Rose and Katie. We'll be sharing some of those treats with you. At this point, I'm going to do a soft close, and I'm aware that everyone spends a lot of time on screens now potentially. So if you would like to, I just say a final, okay, every time I do it, it frightens me. But who's it's so hard, Faye.
Hey, I butcher it too. So
No, Hoosakukini.
Hoosukani.
Hoosakukini.
Hoosukani.
Hoosakukini. Right, see, everyone's laughing, everyone's doing their best, and that's I think all we can do, right, is try our hardest in any direction. So we've got some limps coming in, language. Beautiful. So thank you so much. If anyone wants to stick around and wants to ask a personal question, we'll just stick around for a few more minutes here. But if not, thank you so much. We'll have that email with all the information for you coming up shortly. Huge amounts of thank yous rolling in. Appreciate all of you spending your afternoon or evening with us.